Millionaire got poisoned by his own wife. He built a $400 million empire from nothing. She was the woman he gave everything to. And one night, she slipped poison into his wine. But when police heard why she did it, they didn't put her in handcuffs. They wiped their eyes. This is the story that will completely change what you think love means. Stay right there. Millionaire got poisoned by his own wife. The reason will shock you. Face broken. He was worth $400 million. He had a private jet, a mansion on the water, and a wife who told him every single morning that she loved him. And then one night, she tried to kill him. But here is the part that will destroy you. When the police finally found out why she did it, they didn't arrest her. They cried. Stay with me, because this story is about to flip everything you think you know about love, betrayal, and the secrets that people hide behind a perfect smile. And if this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button right now, because the stories we tell on this channel, you will not find them anywhere else. Let's go back. All the way back to a small town in rural Georgia, where a boy named Daniel Cole grew up with nothing. And I mean nothing. His family didn't own their home. They rented a 2-bedroom house that smelled like mold in the summer and froze in the winter because his father could never afford to fix the heating. Daniel shared a room with his 2 younger brothers. They slept in the same bed until he was 14 years old. His father worked 2 jobs, a gas station in the morning and a warehouse at night. His mother cleaned office buildings on weekends. And still, somehow, there was never enough. Daniel used to wake up early on Saturday mornings and sneak to the kitchen before anyone else was awake. Not because he was hungry, although sometimes he was, but because he wanted a few minutes of silence. A few minutes to just sit and think without the weight of everyone else's sadness pressing down on him. He was a quiet kid, serious, the kind of boy who read everything he could get his hands on. Library books, old newspapers, the backs of cereal boxes. His 3rd-grade teacher, Miss Reynolds, once told his mother that Daniel had the most curious mind she had ever seen in 30 years of teaching. But curiosity doesn't pay bills. And Daniel knew that better than anyone. So from the time he was 12 years old, he made himself a promise. A private, silent, burning promise that he repeated every single night before he fell asleep. He was going to get out. He was going to build something. He was going to make sure that no child of his ever had to share a bed with 2 brothers in a freezing cold room and wonder if there was going to be food tomorrow. That promise became his fuel. He studied harder than every other kid in his school. He stayed after class. He asked teachers questions that made them uncomfortable because they were too good. He applied for every scholarship he could find, 12 in total. He got 3 of them. That was enough to get him to the University of Georgia, where he studied business and finance and worked 20 hours a week at a coffee shop to cover the rest. College was hard, not because of the classes. The classes were easy for Daniel. It was the culture shock. He was surrounded by kids who had never thought about money a single day in their lives. Kids whose parents sent them spending money every month. Kids who talked about their summer vacations in Europe like it was the most normal thing in the world. Daniel had never been on a vacation in his life. He used to eat alone in the campus cafeteria and just watch those kids. He wasn't bitter. He was studying them, learning how they moved, how they talked, how they thought about the future with a kind of relaxed confidence that he had never seen before. He wanted that, not the money, the confidence, the feeling that the future was something you walked toward, not something that came at you like a car crash. He graduated top of his class, got a job at a small financial consulting firm in Atlanta, worked there for 3 years, learned everything. Then he quit and started his own company with $7,000 in savings and a laptop that overheated every 40 minutes. That company, Cole Capital, would eventually manage over $2 billion in assets. But we are not there yet. Because the year Daniel started his company was also the year he met her. Her name was Vivian. And from the very first moment he saw her, Daniel Cole forgot every promise he had ever made to himself. They met at a mutual friend's birthday dinner in Atlanta. Daniel almost didn't go that night. He had been working 18-hour days for 6 straight months and he was exhausted. But his college roommate, a guy named Tommy, called him 4 times in 1 hour until Daniel finally agreed to come. Vivian was sitting at the far end of the table, laughing at something someone had said. And Daniel, who had trained himself to observe everything, found that he couldn't look away from her. She wasn't just beautiful, she was magnetic. She had this way of making every single person at the table feel like they were the most interesting human being alive. She listened. She remembered names. She asked follow-up questions that showed she had actually heard what you said 5 minutes ago. Daniel had never met anyone like her. He introduced himself at the end of the night. She shook his hand and looked him directly in the eyes and said, "I know who you are. Tommy talks about you all the time." Daniel asked, "What does he say?" And Vivian smiled and said, "That you're going to be somebody important one day. I think I believe him." He was 27 years old, and for the first time in his life, someone said those words to him and he actually felt them. They dated for 8 months. In that time, Daniel learned that Vivian had grown up differently than he had, a middle-class family in Charlotte, North Carolina. Her father was a teacher. Her mother was a nurse. She had one older brother. She had studied social work in college because, as she told Daniel on their 3rd date, she had always believed that the most important thing a person could do with their life was ease someone else's suffering. Daniel thought that was the most beautiful sentence he had ever heard. He proposed on a Tuesday night in their apartment kitchen while she was making pasta. No fancy restaurant. No elaborate plan. He just looked at her standing there in her socks and her old college sweatshirt, and he knew with every cell in his body that this was it. She said yes before he even finished the sentence. They got married 6 months later. Small ceremony. Family and close friends only. Daniel's mother cried the entire time. His brothers wore rented suits. Vivian's father gave a speech that made every single person in the room reach for a tissue. It was the happiest day of Daniel's life. And for a long time, for a really, really long time, what came after was just as good. Cole Capital grew fast. Daniel had a gift for seeing opportunity where other people saw risk. He made smart bets. He built real relationships. He treated his clients like family and his employees like human beings, something that, in the world of finance, made him almost shockingly unusual. By the time he was 35, the company was worth over $400 million. They had moved into a 6-bedroom home on Lake Lanier. They drove nice cars. They traveled. Vivian continued her work in social advocacy, sitting on the boards of 3 nonprofits and running a foundation they had started together to fund education programs for low-income kids in Georgia. Everything looked perfect. And from the outside, it was. But here is what nobody saw. The cracks. They were small at first. A dinner that got canceled because Daniel had to fly to New York for an emergency meeting. A vacation that got shortened. A birthday that he almost forgot. The kinds of things that happen in the lives of busy, ambitious people and get written off as the price of success. Vivian never complained. That was the thing about her. She absorbed everything quietly. She told him she was fine. She told him she understood. She told him she was proud of him. And Daniel believed her, because he needed to believe her. What he didn't know was that something had broken inside Vivian 3 years into their marriage. Something quiet and devastating that she had buried so deep even she didn't fully understand it. We'll get to that. But first, the night everything fell apart. It was a Thursday in November. Daniel came home from the office at 7 in the evening, which was early for him. He was in a good mood. The company had just closed the biggest deal in its history, and he had sent the team home early and bought champagne for everyone. He walked into the house and Vivian was in the kitchen. Dinner was already on the table. Wine was poured. She smiled at him, told him she'd heard the news about the deal and wanted to celebrate, said she was proud of him. They ate together, talked, laughed. It felt like old times, the early days, when they used to eat takeout on the floor of their first apartment and talk until 2 in the morning about everything and nothing. Daniel drank the wine, finished his glass. Vivian refilled it. He went to bed that night feeling full and warm and grateful. He woke up at 3 in the morning, unable to breathe. The pain in his chest was unlike anything he had ever felt in his life. His vision was blurring. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely reach for his phone. He managed to dial 911. He told the operator something was wrong. He gave his address. He did not remember anything after that. He woke up in the ICU at Northside Hospital. There were tubes in his arms, machines beeping around him, a doctor standing at the foot of his bed with a look on his face that told Daniel immediately that something was very, very wrong. The doctor told him they had found a toxic compound in his blood, something that didn't belong there, something that, had he not woken up when he did, had he slept through the night, would have been fatal by morning. Someone had poisoned him. The police were already involved. They were investigating. Daniel asked one question. "Where is my wife?" The doctor paused. "Mr. Cole," he said carefully, "your wife is the one who called us. After you were taken by ambulance, she came forward. She told us what she had put in your wine." Daniel stared at him. The room was completely silent except for the machines. "She poisoned me," Daniel said. "It wasn't a question." "Yes," the doctor said. "And then she called you." "Yes." Daniel closed his eyes. He lay there for a long time without saying anything. And then he asked the question that changed everything. "Did she say why?" This is where I need you to really listen. Because what comes next is not what you think. When the detective came to Daniel's hospital room and sat down across from him and opened his notebook, he told Daniel that Vivian had confessed everything, completely and voluntarily. No lawyer, no hesitation. But what she confessed to was not what anyone in that room expected. 3 years into their marriage, Vivian had been diagnosed with a rare and aggressive neurological disease, a condition called Huntington's disease, a genetic disorder that slowly destroys the brain and the nervous system. There is no cure. There is no stopping it. It is a death sentence written in your DNA. She had been told by her doctors that she had somewhere between 8 and 12 years before the disease would take everything from her. Her motor functions, her memory, her ability to speak, to think, to recognize the people she loved. She would not die quickly. She would disappear slowly, piece by piece, until there was nothing left of the woman she used to be. And she had not told Daniel. Not one word. For 3 years she had carried this alone. She had smiled through it. She had laughed through it. She had sat across from him at dinner 1,000 times and looked him in the eyes and said she was fine. Because she had made a decision. She was not going to let him watch her disappear. She had seen what this disease did to families. She had done her research. She was a social worker. She knew how to find information. She knew what it looked like when a caregiver spent years tending to someone who no longer knew their name. She knew the financial cost, the emotional cost, the way it hollowed people out. She loved Daniel too much to do that to him. So she had made a plan, the most heartbreaking plan you will ever hear. She was going to give him a reason to leave. She thought that if she could make Daniel hate her truly, completely hate her, he would move on. He would find someone else. He would build a new life. He would be free. She had studied the compound for months. She was precise and careful because she never actually wanted to kill him. She wanted to hurt him just enough. She wanted him to be in that hospital bed, furious and betrayed, so that when the divorce papers came and she planned to file them the very next day, he would sign them without looking back. She wanted him to walk away angry, because she knew that if he ever found out the truth, he would stay, and she could not bear the thought of him staying, of him watching her lose herself inch by inch until she was a stranger in her own body. She had planned to disappear quietly after the divorce, move back to Charlotte, spend her remaining good years close to her family without dragging Daniel into her darkness. But something went wrong. He had reacted to the compound more severely than she had calculated. His heart, something she hadn't accounted for. And in the middle of the night, standing in their dark kitchen with her hands shaking, Vivian realized she had made a catastrophic mistake. She called 911 before he even woke up. She told them everything. Not to save herself. To save him. When Daniel heard all of this, when the detective read him Vivian's full statement, he was silent for a very long time. The detective told him later that in 15 years on the force, he had never seen anything like it. He had walked into that hospital room expecting to comfort a victim. He walked out of it not knowing what he had just witnessed. Daniel was discharged from the hospital 4 days later. He did not go home. He drove to the county jail, where Vivian was being held pending arraignment. He sat across from her through a glass partition. She was in an orange jumpsuit. Her hair was pulled back. Her eyes were red and swollen. She looked at him like she was waiting for him to tell her she was a monster. He picked up the phone. She picked up hers. And Daniel Cole said 6 words that the correctional officer standing in the corner later said she would never forget for the rest of her life. He said, "You should have just told me." Vivian broke. She put her hand flat against the glass and she sobbed. The kind of crying that comes from somewhere so deep it doesn't make a sound at first. Her whole body shook. Daniel put his hand against the glass on his side and he just held it there. He did not cry in that room. He waited until he got to his car. And then he fell apart. What happened next divided the internet. Daniel hired the best defense attorneys in Georgia. He refused to cooperate with the prosecution. He stood up in that courtroom and told the judge directly that he did not want to see his wife go to prison. He told them everything she had told him, about the diagnosis, about the plan, about the reason. He brought her medical records. He brought her doctors. He presented 3 years of her private journal entries that her own attorney had found, journals filled with page after page of Vivian watching him sleep and writing about how much she loved him, and how she was going to protect him even if it destroyed her. The prosecutor argued that none of that changed what she had done, that she had deliberately poisoned her husband, and that the law was the law. The judge deliberated for 3 days. Vivian was sentenced to 5 years of supervised probation, no prison time. The courtroom erupted. Half the people were furious, half of them were crying. Daniel walked straight to Vivian, took her hand and walked her out of that building. That was 4 years ago. Today, Daniel and Vivian Cole still live together in that house on Lake Lanier. Vivian's disease has progressed. There are days now when she struggles. Days when her hands don't work the way she needs them to. Days when finding the right word takes longer than it used to. Daniel has restructured his entire life around her care. He stepped back from Cole Capital. He hired a management team. He is home by 5 every evening. He has learned everything there is to know about Huntington's disease. He has funded 2 research grants through their foundation, specifically targeting a treatment breakthrough. He started a podcast, just him talking, about what real love looks like, not the movie version, not the flowers and the grand gestures, the real version, The version where you sit next to someone in the dark when they are terrified and you say, "I'm not going anywhere." In one of his episodes, someone asked him how he forgave Vivian. He was quiet for a moment. And then he said, "I didn't have to forgive her because I understood her. And understanding someone, really understanding them, it doesn't leave much room for anger." He paused. "She was trying to save me. That's all she was ever trying to do. She was wrong about how to do it, but she was never wrong about why." And then he said something that I think about all the time. He said, "The scariest thing about love is that the people who love you the most are usually the ones willing to hurt you the most to protect you. Not because they want to cause you pain, but because they are so terrified of their own pain becoming yours." He said, "Vivian didn't try to destroy me. She was trying to set me free, and the greatest gift I ever gave her was refusing to go." I want to ask you something before we close this out. Is there someone in your life right now who is carrying something alone? Someone who tells you they're fine when you can see in their eyes that they are not. Someone who has gotten so good at protecting you from their pain that you've almost started to believe them. Because the most dangerous thing about silent suffering is that it looks exactly like strength. Vivian looked strong. For 3 years she looked completely, perfectly strong, and she was drowning every single day. Don't let the people you love drown quietly. Ask the harder questions. Sit in the uncomfortable silences. Make it safe for the people around you to fall apart. Because sometimes, the person who needs saving the most is the one who insists they're okay. Daniel and Vivian Cole gave one joint interview last year, the only one they have ever done together. At the end of it, the interviewer asked Vivian if she regretted what she had done. Vivian thought about it for a long time. And then she reached over and took Daniel's hand. She said, "I regret that I thought I had to do it alone." She looked at him. "I don't regret that it brought us here." If this story hit you somewhere deep, if it made you feel something, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. You never know who in your life is sitting quietly with something they think they have to carry alone. And if you are new here, subscribe, because every week we bring you stories like this one, true stories, human stories, the kind that remind you what people are actually made of when everything falls apart. We'll see you in the next one.